guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Thanks for stopping in. If you're not new and you've been here before, thank you for coming back. I appreciate that. Okay, so today I want to talk about the main functions of your camera when you're working in manual mode. I think a lot of people, when you get a new, you got this DSLR camera, you're so excited to use it, but you don't know how to get out of auto mode. Real bummer. I've been there. When you figure out how to get out of auto mode, it's a whole new world of possibilities. You have so much more control over your camera. So today I'm going to teach you the 3 most important functions in manual mode, how to use them, what they mean, and we're going to figure it out together. So keep watching. If you want, you don't have to, I guess, but I mean, I recommend it. There are 3 main functions that you should know to achieve the potential that your DSLR has. There is ISO, there's aperture, and there is shutter speed. These are the triangle of things that rely on each other to work and everything like that. Once you figure out, the give and the take, the beautiful, balance of the 3, it really opens up a whole new world of possibilities. The first one I want to talk about is ISO. ISO is your sensor's sensitivity to the light that's coming into it. Let me explain to you what that means. DSLRs typically start at a baseline of 100 ISO. So this 100 is kind of the base. It means it has regular sensitivity. It's not super, super sensitive. It's just, the base. And some cameras, I'm not sure how high mine goes up to, but some of them go up to like 16,000, something crazy like that. You can make your camera super sensitive to light. All right, what do I mean by that? Okay, if you are in, a very dark space and there's not a lot of light, you can make up for it by turning up your ISO way high to make that tiny bit of light affect your camera so much more, because your camera is much more sensitive to that light. All right, that makes sense? So there are some pluses and minuses of adjusting your ISO and making it higher. One of the obvious pluses is, doesn't have a lot of light, you can still see. Biggest minus though, not a lot of people like to use ISO super high, because once you get those really high numbers, your camera, the quality of the images becomes super grainy and it's not cute. So to avoid these kind of grainy looking images, you gotta keep your ISO pretty low, all right? I can get it if you're in a super dark place and you really don't have any other choice, but me personally, when I'm working, I like to keep my ISO at that 100 level. I don't try to go above that. I just try to compensate my other settings to make up for it. Most of the time, in a lot of situations, if you're working during the day or you have lots of natural light to use, you don't even need to touch ISO, honestly. You can keep it at that baseline of 100, not even worry about it, because there are different settings that you can use instead of bumping up your ISO. Okay, now that we know what sensitivity of our sensor is, ISO, let's talk about aperture. It's also known as f-stop, that's a little side note. Aperture is the little opening that lets in light on your lens. When you talk about the little numbers, like 1.4, 2.8, those types of apertures, you're talking about a big old hole in your lens that's letting in lots of light, okay? When you're talking about 14 or something like that with those really big numbers, you're talking about a little tiny hole. So little numbers, big hole, big numbers, tiny opening. Here's the difference between those. When you're working with those big old openings, tiny numbers, you are getting that beautiful, creamy background that most people love. That bokeh, that beautiful, blurred out background. You can't tell what's behind her. Is it a person? Is it a flower? We don't know because it's blurred out. We don't know. You're getting those beautiful things because all that light's coming in and it's creating that shallow depth of field where only your subject is in focus. This is super popular with portraits for, obvious sense. When you're taking a picture of someone, you want them to be the main focus. By using these low f-stops, you can really achieve isolation of your subject and really just make them pop. If you're trying to do something where you want everything to be sharp and in focus, you're going to want to stick to those bigger f-stop numbers. If you're working on architecture or maybe, landscape or something like that, that's where those big f-stop numbers are really going to come in handy, because it's a much deeper depth of field and you can get a lot more in focus in that way. When I get to a session, because I love that bokeh background, I love that creamy, I love that everything else is out of focus and my subject is what's in focus, my first setting that I adjust when I get to a session is I make sure my camera is on f-stop 1.4. That's what I like to shoot in. I love those blurry backgrounds and everything like that. That's what I go to. And then I set my ISO to be 100. And then the last step is to adjust my shutter speed. And my shutter speed is what I typically adjust to compensate for whatever lighting situation I'm in. The shutter speed is how quickly your camera takes the image and how long your sensor in your camera is being exposed to that light. When we are talking about shutter speeds, we are actually talking about fractions of a second. So when you talk about those big old numbers like 4,000, you are actually talking about 1/4000th of a second, versus when you're talking about, 30 shutter speed, it's actually 1/30th of a second. So 1/4000th is obviously very much faster than 1/30th of a second. When you're using those really fast shutter speeds, it's taking in the light really quickly and then closing off that sensor so it doesn't see the light anymore. This comes in handy when you're capturing action or someone in movement and you don't want any blur. On the flip side of this, if you're using slow shutter speeds, what's going to happen is it's going to be a little bit blurry. It's not going to be super sharp because they were in movement while the sensor was still exposed. So if you want nice crisp images of someone in movement, you need to go to those higher shutter speeds. Another rule of thumb when you're working with your shutter speed is to consider what focal length you are shooting at and don't go below your focal length. Let me explain what that means. So this is an 85mm lens, and that means I would not go under 1/85th of a second, because once you start going below what your focal length is, it's gonna start getting real blurry. So if you're working on a 200mm lens, don't go below 200th of a second. Typically when I'm shooting my portraits and stuff like that, I don't like to go too low. I try to keep it above 1/25th of a second, because once you start getting below there, the images do become blurrier and they're not as sharp. So like I said, my shutter speed is the thing that I mostly adjust based on, my situation, my lighting situation, and wherever I'm at. One good way to kind of know, like, where do I even start? How do I know what the shutter speed needs to look like? There is a light meter on the top of your camera that'll tell you if your photo is going to be underexposed or overexposed. Underexposed means it's too dark. Overexposed means it's way too bright. So you can follow the light meter and adjust your shutter speed while looking at the light meter to see, okay, it's saying I need to go a little slower with my shutter speed, or it's saying I need to go a little faster with my shutter speed. This little light meter is super helpful, so you don't have to just take a picture, look at it, adjust. Take a picture, look at it, adjust. No, that would take forever. Use your light meter on your camera to sort of figure out what the lighting is gonna look like. So there you go, you guys. That is ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, and what you need to know about them and how they affect your camera. I hope that was helpful. I hope I covered everything. If you guys have any specific requests of like what these things mean a little more in depth or anything like that, shoot me a comment below. I'll do my best to answer your questions. If there's anything you want to learn in particular about working with a DSLR or shooting or photography, or not even with a DSLR, with any type of camera, put it in the comments below and I will definitely try to make that happen in my next video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Like, comment, and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. All right, have a great day. Love you. Bye. Said love you. Don't know you, but love you. Okay, bye.